Hi guys, so it's been a while since I've painted my favourite kind of miniatures, and that's obviously these green skins. Yep, I still love Orks, been painting them for a good few years, and yeah, they're always going to be my favourite. So I got this lovely box from Chaos Cards. There's a link down below guys, and I have got a discount code down there for you to use to get, get a discount obviously. So usual thing, get the tools all ready, plastic glue, cutters, snips, and a good old scalpel there to, hopefully not cut my fingers. So I've had this box sitting on a shelf for the past couple of months, and yeah, it's about time I painted a few of them. Although by the looks of it, I have taken one off the sprue already. Not sure what I've done with that chap, but he's out there somewhere. So yeah, these guys are pretty easy to put together, as well, they're kind of like mostly there already. So doing the old kit bashing with these is a little bit difficult, as you certainly would have to do plenty of cutting and snipping and chopping. But yeah, I'm just going to assemble them as they are. So yeah, nice and simple. So simply cut away from the sprue, and obviously this is where I need the scalpel next, just because when you do cut them away, sometimes there are little bits of sprues left over, or in some cases the old the mould lines even, get the right teeth in. So even though these are simple, I am still following the instruction booklet just to get the right numbers, and that's always a fun bit of this sort of game, trying to find the numbers on the sprues, as anyone who's done this kind of thing will know none of the numbers really go next to each other. They're kind of like, well, all over the shop, aren't they really? So this is where obviously I try not to cut my fingers, using the sharp scalpel here, just to sort of cut away and sort of scrape away any of those mould lines and where the sprue's been really. Generally sometimes you get the models that don't have many lines, and then you get some that just have a clear line that almost goes all the way up through their body. So yeah, you want to sort of take time and care to scrape these lines away now, because as much as you can see them now, when you paint it, yeah, you'll be able to see it even more. And then it's simply a case of just gluing all the bits together. So over the past year or so, I've obviously got well and truly into painting miniatures, and yeah, absolutely love it. Obviously always trying out new sort of techniques, tips, tricks, as like you guys, I do watch a lot of YouTube, and well, I like to see what other people are doing. So in this video, I've got the 3 different Orks here, and I'm going to paint each one of them in a different sort of way. But the way I'm painting them, they're all nice and fast and quick. And yeah, it's about 17 minutes-ish, if that. So it's a great way to get all your miniatures tabletop ready, especially if you're doing like a big army and you've got a lot of these little chaps to paint. Yeah, this is certainly the way to do it. And it'll be even quicker if you're batch painting. So yeah, get all your men, get them all ready, get them all glued, and then do any one of the 3 sort of steps I'm going to show you, and yeah, you'll get these done in no time at all. So that's one thing I always find, whenever I glue them together, I do occasionally find little bits at the end that I've kind of missed. So yeah, go and scrape them bits off. So here's the 3 guys, and yeah, these are looking awesome. But as you can see, I didn't include some of the shoulder pads, and the main reason for that is, well, I like to see these guys because they've got lots of muscles. So here's something that some people do, some people don't, and that's drill the old barrels. Although, as you can see, I'm not drilling. I'm using my scalpel, as I find this, well, a nice quick easy way of drilling the barrel, but obviously not drilling. So yeah, I get my scalpel, stick it in, poke it around, and then bish bash bosh, it's done. So there's the 3 characters all ready to paint, and I say they're all going to be done in a slightly different way, but all nice and quick. As you can see though, they are on bases, so yeah, I'm going to give them a little bit of basing, and all I've got is this nice fine sand. And yeah, simply a case of dropping some glue on the base. So if I wasn't in a rush, I would just use PVA glue here. But yeah, as I want to get these chaps painted, I'm using some good old super glue, slop that on, and then just a case of dipping these guys in the sand. And yeah, a nice simple little base. Obviously you could spend more time doing bases, but generally I don't normally use a base, as if you watch my videos quite a lot, you'll see that I use a lot of clear bases, because I like to see whatever terrain is underneath them. But yeah, these guys probably won't be used. These are just purely me having some fun, doing a bit of painting, and as I say, showing 3 different ways of painting Orks in a very short time. So yeah, they're all my little painting handles all ready to paint, and now it's just a case of getting these chaps primed. And as these are all being painted in a different way, they're also being primed in a different way. So we've got one chap here primed in fully black, one in white, and then one primed in black with a zenithal sort of white over the top. So the primers I use are from the Colour Forge. It's again linked down below guys, as I have found these the best primers to use. Good old rattle can. So now onto the fun bit of painting, and I've got my Army Painter Warpaints, well, a nice huge big wet palette But obviously if you've seen in a recent video, it's a wet palette, but I've included my little inlay here of a textured Drybrush palette. This one also comes with a nice big sort of, well, tray for your speed paints, which is pretty awesome as well. This first chap, yep, you guessed, he's going to be Slapchopped, which is definitely my go-to method, although occasionally I do like trying other things. So he's obviously primed in black, but we need to change that and give him a good old dry brushing with white, and that's where my textured Drybrush palette inlay comes in, as this is obviously how I get rid of most of the paint, and I can see exactly how much is left on there by, well, how well it's covering, well, my face. And then, yeah, good old dry brushing. We know this, nice and simple, nice and easy, but always great results. And this is the painting technique that, well, got me into more painting miniatures, say just over a year ago. As prior to this, yeah, I didn't paint many miniatures at all. And if anything, I made more sort of terrain pieces and then just turned them into rust buckets, as, well, that's nice and easy to paint. So as I say, this the Wargamers edition wet palette from Army Painter. Yeah, it's got this lovely deep tray so you can use obviously your speed paints in. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. And yeah, that's how simple it is. Obviously you've seen me do this many a time now. And the speed paints really do make it so easy for, well, anyone to be able to paint. So I'm using one of my favourite greens. That's the charming Chartreuse. Chartreuse? You know the one. Yeah, obviously there's lots of greens that you can choose from. That's the other reason why I love the Army Painter speed paints. They do have such a nice big variety. And I think I've got around about sort of 14 or 15 different greens to choose from. But yeah, I've got my top sort of 3 or 4. And the charming whatever one is certainly, yeah, up there in the top 3. So I will leave timestamps throughout this video, guys, as well. I'm going to include everything I'm doing in this one, as I know a lot of you guys like to sort of see exactly which paints I use to do, well, everything really, from their trousers to their tops, obviously their skin and everything else. So yeah, this is going to be quite a long video, guys, so go and grab yourself a cup of tea, get some biscuits, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably painting along with me in the background. So that's why this one I'm going to include everything I'm doing, just so you can see the full stages and I say every single colour that I use. Just like this dark wood that I'm going to use for this hide skin that he's obviously wearing. So again, this is the reason why, I know I said it in the past, but Army Painter speed paints, yeah, they do an absolute ton of different colours. And so yeah, I've got loads of browns as well, which is pretty cool. Some that are really good, like the few that I've used here. But as always, there are some paints that companies do that aren't as good as the others. But yeah, there are quite a lot of good browns. So the metallics, yeah, metallics aren't too bad in regards to speed paints. They certainly cover really, really well, which is really nice. But they still never seem to have as much contrast and highlights as, well, the other sort of speed paints. So sometimes I do go over these with a wash or with like a normal sort of lighter, brighter silver, just to give it, well, the highlighting look. The orange as well, this is another one where I've not really found a, well, really nice orange. Again, as you can see here, they kind of comes out more browny than orange. I would really like to see a real strong, vibrant sort of, well, warm orange. But you'll be able to see that, well, coming up later on in the video. You'll see me using a different kind of orange, one that does look really, really good. Let me know in the comments, guys, if you prefer the longer videos where I do sort of show and go through every sort of paint I use. As I know in a lot of the videos, I try and keep them nice and short and condensed, just so you can see sort of roughly the start and finish. But yeah, I don't always show every single paint I use. And I know a lot of you guys do like to sort of see every paint I use, just because, well, you can see how it comes across, and you may want to sort of duplicate the same process yourselves. So leave some comments down below, let me know what you think of the longer videos, or if you do prefer the sort of like the shorter ones. Although I am considering doing more shorts. That's something I don't really do a whole lot of. But yeah, with a lot of the videos that I make, obviously I could condense them down into nice sort of, well, under a minute sort of things, showing the quick, fast process. Yeah, so let me know again if you want to see some shorts going on. So back to painting this dude, and it seems only fitting that I am Slapchop painting this orc as well. The first sort of team that I Slapchop painted, and that was the good old orc kill team. And yeah, very surprised and very pleased with how they came out, especially as I say the first time sort of doing this sort of technique. And yeah, as I always say, if I can do it, then yeah, anyone else can do it, because I have no technical skills or knowledge when it comes to painting whatsoever. But I certainly am having fun painting, and yeah, learning and trying out lots of sort of different techniques. Some of them you guys have mentioned, and I say I do watch a lot of obviously other YouTubers in what they're painting and making. And yeah, I think he's looking mighty fine here. So just a few more bits to do, and obviously the base. So I've kept the base nice and simple. I've kind of gone for, well, almost like a sort of a dirt base, stony base, but it will certainly do for a nice, quick, simple, easy base. So with obviously the speed paint usage, there are sometimes where I use paints that, well, not speed paints. And as you can see here, I'm using a normal sort of off-white paint just to do the stitching that goes around these guys, as well as any fingernails and teeth. As yeah, trying to use a speed paint, or especially a lighter colour speed paint over other colours, doesn't really shine through very well. So yeah, there are sometimes I do use, well, normal paints. And then generally when I do use these, I will go over these with a little bit of a wash, just to kind of like dirty them down and make them not so clean. Especially obviously on these guys' teeth. We don't want their teeth looking clean because, well, I'm sure they don't take care of their teeth. And then yeah, last couple of things to do, and that's to paint the rim of the base a good old black. Obviously you can do this whatever colour you want. You could do it brown to sort of match the terrain that he's on. But yeah, I'm going with a good old black on this. And then the last little thing, I think this just needs a couple of little tufts of, well, I was going to say fur, I don't mean fur, little tufts of grass. As yeah, he's sort of running around on a barren bit of ground. And yeah, there we go. And there's the first orc completed. Yeah, say under 17 minutes, really quick but really good. So moving on to the next one. And as you can see, this dude has been primed in white, so yeah, definitely a little bit different here. So instead of the speed paints, I'm going to use the good old contrast paints. So these Citadel ones, I've kind of had these sitting around on my desk for, well, quite some time, because I don't generally use these a whole lot. So these, I do kind of almost prefer the pots on these, as well, you can take the paint straight out of the pot. And I know a lot of people don't like these ones because they might knock them over. But yeah, obviously, as you can see, I've 3D printed a little paint pot holder. So I've never had any issues with, well, spillage or knocking things over. But I do really like the idea of taking the paint straight from the pot, as one thing I hate doing, and that's wasting. I always feel like when you get the paints and you put them in sort of like, I don't know, trays or even wet pallets, there's always paint there you're never going to use. And yeah, I say I'm a guy that when I look at paint, it costs money. So any paint I don't use or gets wasted, well, I say that as wasted money. So yeah, I do like these pots. As you can see, I don't really have a huge selection. I think I bought like a starter set of contrast paints. But again, this is going back a good year or so, as these have been sitting on my desk for a while, unused, unopened, and probably unloved. But again, just want to try something different, as I don't normally prime miniatures in white. As generally I do prefer the grimdark style painting, as I do like my miniatures to look, well, weathered, beaten and bruised and all the rest of it. But sometimes I do look at other people's miniatures where they are a bit brighter and a bit lighter, and it's like, oh yeah, I kind of like that look as well. So this is why it's always worth trying out new styles, because as much as you might think you prefer one style over another, yeah, until you sort of really get cracking on and painting a different one. So that's why I think painting the white bases and then using, well, in this case I'm using the contrast paints, but obviously you could use speed paints, and I think you'd still get the sort of same sort of effect where the miniatures do look a lot sort of brighter and lighter. So yeah, it's always worth giving things a go. Again, like I always say though, with the paints, some work better than the others. This is a contrast black, but it is coming out, well, just like a jet black. There's no real contrast in it at all. So this is one where the Army Painter black certainly works better, as there is more, well, more contrast in it, whereas this is just like a solid black. So again guys, let me know in the comments, do you prefer the Army Painter speed paints, or do you prefer the Citadel contrast paints? As I think they probably all have their sort of benefits and their negatives. Although one thing I have found a lot with the contrast paints that I've got, a lot of them seem, well, quite dark. You'll see coming up, I use one, I think it's Nazdreg yellow, but it comes out like a brown, and definitely isn't, there's no yellow in it whatsoever. And I'm not sure if that's just because I've got like a dodgy paint, or if that's, well, how they all come out. Although that being said, this is where the Citadel contrast paints do have a lot of colours that are bright. Yeah, they do have a nice sort of orange. They do also have a nice yellow, but not that Nazdreg, whatever one I just said. Yeah, so the orange here comes out very orange, but again, it seems to be quite a strong pigmented orange, as yeah, it's almost uniformed across it. There is no real sort of like darker, lighter areas, which is a bit of a shame, because obviously that's the reason for having or using contrast paints, is so you don't have to do any highlights or any sort of shadows or shading. But yeah, on the whole, they're not too bad. So I'm not sure if Citadel do any sort of well, the contrast paints for silver or metallic sort of contrast paints. So I'm just using their normal paints. So yeah, this is definitely a case of I am going to have to use a wash over these. Otherwise these metallic paints do look just too neat, and yeah, there's no sort of definition, no contrast, no obviously shading or highlights in them. So yeah, good old wash over the copper or the gold there, and also the silver. But one thing I will say is though, these paints do go on really nice and certainly cover really well. Obviously I'm just covering them over the white primer, but these do go really well over black as well, which is pretty cool. So this is that Nazdreg yellow that I was talking about. Again guys, let me know, have I got a dodgy one here? Should this be more of a yellow? Because well, it's certainly more of a brown, which in this case is great for the floor, but not if I wanted to paint something, well, yellow. But yeah, let me know guys, because say I've had this for a while and I'm not too sure if this is how it's meant to look or I've just got a dodgy one. So just like the Slapchop painting, yeah, this one was done super quick as well, and say just need to really darken down sort of the silver areas, and I'm using the good old Agrax Earthshade. So before I got into contrast paints and speed paints, yeah, this is kind of how I used to paint. I would just paint block colours and then chuck on a load of wash, and obviously the miniatures looked absolutely pants, which is kind of why when I first started this channel I really didn't print or paint many miniatures at all, because well, I just didn't like how they came out and I didn't really enjoy the actual painting. And so if you look back on a lot of my earlier videos, you will see I did a lot more building sort of terrain and bits and pieces. In fact, I had an Ork and I called him the Lonely Ork, because I basically painted one Ork over about a space of about 6 months, and even then I don't think he was fully finished. But yeah, so now I am obviously painting miniatures, well, tons of them, every single day. So again, for this dude I'm using a normal sort of paint here, just to do his teeth and his nails and any sort of stitches on his outfit. But again, these will have a little bit of a wash over the top, just to sort of well, darken them down so things don't look too nice and too neat. But I do like the fact that this guy's got some little bones. Yeah, he's kind of inserted in his skin. Yeah, I just love Orks because they are nuts, they're mad, but they look awesome. So similar to the first guy, yeah, this guy's going to have his base done exactly the same. A nice little bit of black going around the bottom, and then once that's all done, yeah, I'm going to stick on a few more tufts of grass. And there we go, there's my second Ork painted in a different style. But again, we're talking like 17 minutes, if that. In fact, obviously this video is going to last a whole lot longer than it took me to, well, paint one of these miniatures. So yeah, Ork number 2, Ork number 1, obviously looking great, say painted differently, and now a case of Ork number 3. So what are we going to do with this chap? Well, as you can see, I've done a kind of zenithal highlight in here, something I never normally do. But I'm going to paint him with sort of normal block colours. But as you can see, I'm using these air paints from Army Painter. And the reason I like using these, well, 2 reasons really. Army Painter sent me a big batch of these, so I've got lots of wonderful, lovely colours. And 2, they're already thinned down, because obviously they're meant to go through your airbrush. So the fact that they're thinned down means you can just put them on straight away. And yeah, they go on lovely and smooth, give a great finish. And like all the Army Painter range, they do an absolute shed load of these, as in the colours. So the greens, without counting, I think I've got well over 20 different greens. So yeah, a lot to choose from. But as you can see, with this guy, I'm going with some lighter colours, just because, well, you'll see what I do at the end of the video on this chap. So yeah, lighter colours first, but everything will get darkened down, well, near the end. And again, all the paints from the air range, they go on a treat. I say they're all thinned down. I'm not sure what they're thinned down with, but obviously they're meant to be going through an airbrush. So I have used these through an airbrush. Yeah, really enjoyed that. But using the airbrush on miniatures is quite a large or big, steep learning curve. So I've used the airbrush to paint, well, larger miniatures or terrain pieces, which is pretty cool. But yeah, in general, for these kind of size figures, I would definitely struggle with an airbrush, as yeah, I would get bits all over the place. So using a nice small brush is definitely my preferred method. But again, I do love using these paints, as they are lovely and, well, thinned down. Although even though these paints are thinned down, they do cover really, really well. As you can see, everything I'm doing here is just sort of one coat, which is pretty cool. And obviously the other good thing with these kind of paints is these are great for doing highlights. So I often say that when I'm doing the Slapchop painting, I need to revisit a lot of the miniatures I've painted, just to sort of add some extra bit to them by doing, well, yeah, more highlights. So these paints would be great for that. As I say, these are already thinned down. Well, I probably would still use them on my wet palette, just to possibly even sort of like thin them down, maybe even more. So the air set I have only has the one metallic paint, and as you can see, that's this silver, which again goes on really well. As that is something I have struggled with in the past, is finding a nice silver that covers really well. You get quite a lot that are almost like thick and clumpy, and just don't sort of smooth out really nice. But this air one, yeah, certainly goes on a treat. So as you can see, I'm having to resort to using the Citadel gold paint here, just because, yeah, I don't have a paint or gold paint with the air range. I'm guessing they probably do one, I just don't have it. If you guys are painting along with me in the background, yeah, again guys, leave some comments down below, let me know what it is you're working on, and what sort of preferred painting style you have, especially if it's a painting style that I've not tried. As I say, there's obviously 3 in this video. These probably are my sort of typical painting styles, especially the Slapchop. That really is my sort of general go-to, although I do like the idea of priming the miniatures in white and using some more sort of stronger, vibrant colours, especially when it comes to Orks as well. You can never go too crazy with Orks, because the brighter and bolder, yeah, certainly the better. So this is where I am looking at trying some different styles. As much as I do like grim dark, yeah, I am finding it now maybe a bit too sort of dark and dingy. Yeah, I've heard a term popping around, grim pop, and I like the idea of this, because obviously it's kind of like a little mix on grim dark, but with a bit more brighter, bolder colours, which is really good. So yeah, this black, yeah, as you can see, it's definitely more of a grey. This is why I always say, it doesn't matter what sort of range of paints you use or which sort of companies you use, they always have some paints that are really good and some, yeah, not so much. And the black here is, well, it's just grey. So sticking with like the other sort of 3 Orks I've done, I'm giving the base similar sort of look colour, as I want them all to just be like earthy sort of tones. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. So this guy's almost done, but as you can see, there's no real contrast in anything here, because I am just using block colours. So yeah, he's just looking like solid tones of colour. So the magic ingredient here is good old Quickshade, again from Army Painter. Nice sort of strong tone dip. This is something I've only used once before, and the result wasn't quite what I was expecting, but that was generally because I didn't actually read the tin to see what was going to happen. So yeah, I'll tell you about that in just a second. So with this one, you don't actually shake it, you stir it, and as you can see there at the bottom there is some big old clumps. So yeah, give it a good stir till it's all nice and smooth, and then simply get a little guy and yeah, dunk him in. So again, another one of these things where it really is nice and simple, nice and quick. So yeah, this guy, again, all these 3 Orks, definitely well under 17 minutes each. Yeah, dunk him in. And then I took this outside, well, actually shook it into a box, but obviously you want to shake off the excess here, because otherwise there'll be far too much on it. And then yeah, you just let it dry. So as you can see, I've shaken loads off. It's still wet and kind of shiny, but that's because he's not dried yet. So when they do dry, yeah, they dry with a shine on them. And this I didn't realise, and in the last time I used it, well, it's the first time I used it, I did mention I didn't like the look of it. And then everyone was saying, yeah, you need to spray it with some matte varnish. And it does say that on the tin. So yeah, guys, it's always worth reading instructions, even when you think, well, you don't need to. So once he has been sprayed with matte varnish, yeah, the shine has gone. And well, I actually love the look of it. So again, this Quickshade, I've had that sitting on my desk. Oh, I don't know, that's got to be there for at least 2 years I've had it. Never used it. No, I have used it once. I am contemplating using it, well, quite a lot. So I'm really happy with how these 3 turned out, and I think we should see them in more of their glory. there we go guys, 3 Orks painted a bit differently and all come out really well. I'll have to admit, I'm not too sure which one's my favourite. If anything, I think the Slapchop one is probably number 3 out of these 3, just because he is obviously darker. Although that being said, the green I used, yeah, that might have been darker as well. So guys, yeah, let me know in the comments which one of these 3 styles do you prefer, and which one of these do you actually do, or do you do something completely different? But say the fact that these are all sort of well under 17 minutes, tabletop ready. Obviously these can be improved on, but for say someone like me who wants to sort of paint lots and lots of miniatures and obviously enjoy the painting, this is definitely yeah, 3 go-to methods for me. As mentioned, yeah, with the air paints, I am looking at using them to do sort of more highlights and stippling and, well, anything else that can obviously improve the look of miniatures and my enjoyment of this hobby. There is another video on the screen guys, give that a click, see more of what I do, and if you can, like, share, subscribe, leave comments, all that good stuff, as it will help promote my channel. Big shout out and thank you to all my lovely patrons, as well as my monthly sponsors, who are enabling me to sort of keep having fun, being a big kid, and making all these lovely videos. Okay guys, you take care, bye now.